followed by Nirmala Sitharaman. And then we'll have Dr. S. Jaishankar, and then I believe it was Ashwini Vaishnav and others who will be sworn in, including H.D. Kumaraswamy, the JDS chief. Then there is an empty chair that we can see. Perhaps we are waiting for who it will be. Vishnu Som is joining us here in the studio. Vishnu, you know, a number of foreign dignitaries have arrived, heads of states. If you can share some details on that.
You know, I think that's a really important sort of aspect in all of this. The fact that you've got 7 key regional heads of state who have joined is very much an indicator of this being a neighborhood first list of invitees. And I think all of this has been done at one level with an eye on China. How do you ask? Let me explain. China has an active presence now in the Maldives. India has invited the president of the Maldives, President Mohammad Musa, who is over here. Very important visit. I'll talk about that later on. China has an increasingly important stake in Sri Lanka. India is trying to counter that with ports and in other means. The Sri Lankan president has been invited. He's here as well. China has been illegally cutting into or salami slicing the territory of Bhutan. That is a cause of huge international concern, certainly for India, because they're pushing south towards the Siliguri corridor. That's the narrow sliver of land between the northeast of India and the rest of the country. The King of Bhutan, the Prime Minister of Bhutan, an incredibly close friend of India and personally very close to the Prime Minister here as well. Further to the west, the Prime Minister of Mauritius over here, Mr. Jagannath, has a personal equation with Prime Minister Modi. India is looking to work with the Mauritius to monitor large tracts of the Indian Ocean. There is an island called Agalega, which is a Mauritian island where the Indian Navy is believed to be developing a frontline base. The Seychelles, also a very important regional partner. And of course, Bangladesh, right next to us, with Sheikh Hasina, the Prime Minister, has a personal equation. Economic ties between India and Bangladesh are now soaring. There are huge infrastructure projects, transport projects, energy projects. And of course, there is the entire issue of the Teesta water sharing arrangement, which is still in the process of being worked out.
Birla arriving there, Vishnu.
So that you know, is a sense of how, at one level, the international aspect of what Prime Minister Modi and the BJP seek is something that is being played out, and very significantly. And my last point, Maria, before you come in, is that there is the leadership of China and the leadership of Pakistan have not been called. So that again sends a signal.
Yes, and the beautiful, spectacular, majestic, whatever the words that we may use, it will be still less to describe the sheer, grandeur of this ceremony, Manisha Priyam. Just look at that building, the Rashtrapati Bhavan.
A colonial building.
Yes.
And you've got Baker and Luton's making it. Let me give you a brief anecdote.
Yeah.
As you climb up the Raisina Hills, a spectacular vision. But the fact is that if you go down to the India Gate, the Raisina Hills almost block off the vision.
Sorry, can I interrupt you for half a second? I'm so sorry. This is the president of the Maldives, President Mohammad Musa, who is arriving. Why is this important? And Manisha, come in over here. It's the first visit of President Musa to India, the first time he's going to be meeting Prime Minister Modi. This is the man who came to power in the Maldives fairly recently on an exit India plank. He is asked for and has succeeded in getting all Indian Armed Forces personnel from the Maldives out of Maldives, number one. Number two, his first foreign visit was to China. There is a military agreement which he has signed with China. That military agreement allows China to provide military assistance to the Maldives gratis, free of charge. Number four, on the 4th of, I believe, February this year, there was a Chinese surveillance ship which was allowed to dock in Malé. Now, the Chinese called them surveillance ships. In an interview to NDTV, the Navy chief then categorically said that these have very strong military applications. Manisha,
so I think one of the most important messages going out at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan today, even before the swearing-in ceremony has commenced, is that of a strong India in South Asia, a strong India in the subcontinent, and the Bharat ki Vaishvik Chavi dimension very, very much at the forefront of the swearing-in today of this government.
And that's the Sri Lankan president over there. Mr. Vikramasinghe at Rashtrapati Bhavan, again a key regional player. And all of these players have had there has been an outstanding set of engagements, first to the level of the Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, and obviously the Prime Minister carries that equation with his own personal touch. And the key point that is being stressed over here, as you see the Maldivian President, the Sri Lankan Prime Minister reach out and meet the Sri Lankan President, is that there is a cultural connect. We don't talk really, Manisha, about that cultural connect, but there is a huge cultural, historic, regional connect here, which goes beyond geopolitics. There's a religious connect also at some levels. And I think that in a sense underwrites the region first policy or the neighborhood first policy of this government.
No, there have been deep civilizational connections. I would say all the guests here who are here, I think we've been not just a part of a landmass, but the arguments, the cultures, and the traditions have held us together. But that's the long civilization of it. Today, I would say that our neighbors are all countries of their own immense standing, barring, I would say, the state of Pakistan that stands out as an exception, not been able to make it to the mark. The state of Bhutan, for example, has its own imprint, a small state, but the happiness index much spoken about. The state of Bangladesh, a lot of issues about rural development, etc., have made their mark. The anti-poverty programs, much known all over the world. The country of Pakistan, Nepal, for example, they've had a transition to democracy. Of course, governments not that stable, but very important political discussions on constitutionalism that they've been able to script out, and no longer a little territory that China can put their footprints on without its own maneuvering in the Committee of Nations. So all these three states, the state of Sri Lanka, once again, deep civilizational connects, religious connects with our country. I would love to tell you that the University of Calcutta was once upon a time the headquarters for the University of Colombo. Then, of course, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore led the civilizational culture bonds with Sri Lanka. Much of the dance traditions and cultural traditions that were taught at the Santiniketan, the Gurudev learned from Sri Lankan traditions. But that country has had its own democratic upheavals, disturbances. China, of course, parked in there at the port.
So we can see Piyush Goyal and Dharmendra Pradhan in a conversation. Next to them is Jitan Ram Manjhi, the former Chief Minister of Bihar. So we have more details that are coming in now, Vishnu, of the total Council of Ministers. In fact, this Council of Ministers will have 72 ministers in all, including the Prime Minister. The new team will include 30 cabinet ministers, 5 ministers of state with independent charges, and 36 ministers of states. And these 72 come from 24 states. So there is a massive regional representation that we are seeing in terms of social groups. There are 27 OBCs, 10 from scheduled castes, 5 from scheduled tribes, and 5 minorities.